Hello, welcome everybody thank you for being here. And we're going to talk about decentralized project management and have just like this vague tie-in to Agile Scrum. And am I close enough to the microphone? Would you say? Help me. Thank
Oh,
you.
you got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't want there to be feedback. I don't want to be like I'm tall. I don't want to be like hunched over. But anyway, okay, so here we are, August 2nd, and a few jokes to get us started. So this is not your average female founder. This is also not me. I'm 48 years old. This, by the way, is a generated image from a company called Midjourney. I think they're underutilized. I like them. I just renewed my subscription using my corporate card. It cost not an exorbitant amount. That's a good thing. So this is definitely not me. This is my company, lotusinsight.co. Don't confuse me with my company. Companies typically have more than one shareholder. This is the case with mine. Companies can also change hands rather quickly. I'm speaking here as me. I'm speaking with my values. I'm speaking with whatever insight and passion and intelligence I can share. But I will goof, I will make mistakes, and let's continue. This is what Portland, lovely city, I'm a local if not a native, what it might look like in a few years. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows which side the AI cyborgs will be on. I love AI. I'm fascinated by AI. Not all programmers are comfortable with it. I'm also trying to start a forum on GitHub to discuss AI. It may be an interesting laboratory for the methodology we're going to discuss in more detail coming up next. But enough science fiction. We're here to talk about Agile Scrum. Specifically, we're here to talk about Agile Scrum for open source community projects. I have never played rugby, but I do think there's a connection to Australia buried somewhere in here. Hard to say, like I'm not an expert. I don't have a certification in Agile Scrum. I only learned about this methodology, actually, Scrum, from my Scrum Master at Daimler just a few weeks, I think maybe 2.5 weeks before our team was dissolved in 2020 due to COVID. So everything that was put together for the case study we're going to discuss, it was learned on the fly. We didn't have the luxury of certainty. We didn't have the luxury of a lot of time or a lot of training. We just did the best that we could and deployed some techniques. I consider this a very effective methodology. I also like the concept of the 7 habits of highly effective people. I have not read that book, though, or not much of it. Effective has different definitions for different people. I'm going to go very deep and very personal here and say that not too long ago, I was unemployed and just the chance to work on any project, money, not important, anything at all, meant the world. There are people who are in that situation. There are also people who are incredibly overcommitted. And this is me, by the way, like on a Tuesday, any given Sunday, Thursday, like this is typically also like a part of my universe. There are people who are overcommitted and cannot volunteer or be present for every project where they're in demand or every meeting. So within those two poles, not in opposition, we have something which is an emerging way to get stuff done. And community projects can be anything. We hope they are good. We hope they are good for the world, for the environment, for ecology, for other people, for ourselves. We hope that many of them are monetizable and pay fair and equitable wages to all contributors. Does this sound like open source as we know it yet? Maybe, maybe not. I like the idea of paying maintainers. I'm passionate about just having spaces be open to all contributors. And ideally, open means open, and gatekeepers, social barriers. Enough about that. In general, I try to be a positive person, but if you're trying out these techniques, this is only a starting point. Further testing is required. Results may vary. I would tell you to read the fine print at this point, but there is no fine print because this is a PowerPoint presentation. Yes, I know. Many programmers hate Agile Scrum. They hate it. They hate it with a passion. Why? I don't know. It can seem very corporate. Also, it's a bit of a treadmill. You can feel like you're always being called into meetings or stand-ups, as they say, and that it's just a waste of time and it's taking away from time that you could use to code or catch up. I get that. This is a modified and simplified variant. And the term stand-up, it's good for comedy. It's not essential to doing Scrum, in my view. And if you're a certified Scrum Master and you dispute that, well, we can schedule a duel at a different time. But no, never mind about dueling. No. What it's really all about is decentralized project management. What would this look like? This is one vision that Midjourney, their AI, came up with. It's just one of several. Here's some other variants, but none of these are software yet. Some people might be confused into thinking they're actually a design. Maybe you could call them a comp. This is designer lingo. I'm a graphic designer who also can code. And immediately, I've lost respect in the eyes of almost everyone in this room. I don't see any other designers. I don't see the ghost of Steve Jobs here. Am I getting his name right? Jobs. I'm part of that weird subset of a generation where we consume more information by reading than by listening to our elders, our loved ones, our friends, or the television. So design thinking, very important. A lot of programmers may dismiss us, but they should not, because it's hard work, and we cannot do it for a lifetime. You get repetitive strain injury at a certain point. Hello, Pfizer. Not holding them responsible, at least not legally. But it's just really important to say that there actually are more than two roles in any successful project, be it a community project, be it something that has nothing at all to do with software, be it something that's all about technology. There are always more than two functional specialties. GitHub is a great tool for programmers. And is GitHub a platform? Of course. Let's go back to this phrase I put out here, decentralized project management. What would it look like? Does it require a platform? And what exactly is a platform? We don't have a dedicated platform yet for Agile Scrum. I'm sure there are people who try to pitch this every year. And, I don't know what's stopping them from getting that trademark, but I'm sure there will be one soon. Or maybe not. What we're talking about here is simpler than that. What we're talking about are community projects with a decentralized structure. By the way, cryptocurrency could figure into compensation, but it's not a panacea. It's not a cure-all. It doesn't solve all problems. We assume that even though we don't have a dedicated platform yet, eventually one will be built. By whom? By us, perhaps aided by AI, but certainly by more than the people in this room. and more than the people who may see this talk at some point, if in fact it streams. We don't have a dedicated platform yet, but we assume that eventually one will be built. In the meantime, we have Jira. My boss at Pfizer pronounced it Jira. We have GitHub. We have Figma. And we have Element from matrix.org. But you could also use something else. I unofficially endorse the above platforms, very, very unofficially. Some I haven't used in a few weeks or months. Trello, by the way, which is what we used for givingmap.org, the case study project, Trello got acquired. Good for them. A few people may know this. We need something like a legal framework to facilitate working within the structure of nonprofits and also within the structure of real-life security threats, a situation where people's personal information could be compromised. People in general think that the virtual world is safer than the physical world. Another way to put it is if you're trying to build a house and you're a group of volunteers, they're going to be very careful about what roles people take on early on. Even if you're sorting food at a food bank, if you're trying to figure out which potatoes are rotten and moldy and which ones are still good enough to give to other humans, you're going to be asked to wear a vest. You're going to be asked to go through a sign-up process. Probably you're going to scan your ID, and you're going to be kept track of during that time that you're doing that community service. That's a step that makes a lot of sense in the physical world for nonprofits, but it also can slow down contributions, it can slow down participation, and it can keep away maybe a few volunteers. In terms of how to do decentralized project management, safety is incredibly important. So is thinking about the real world structures of 501c3s. They're not magic. They serve a really important public function. They're a part of our tax system, essentially. And they have board members who could be, in theory, liable for mistakes that almost anyone connected with that organization makes. So 501c3, there are larger issues here than just Agile Scrum or decentralized project management or anything really. We need a legal framework. My reach goal, and yeah, it is a reach goal, is to go to law school in my late 40s or early 50s. Like I said, I'm 48 years old. It's an advanced age to even think about taking the LSAT. But, somebody's got to do this work. However, even in the best case scenario, it's more than a one-person job. And licensure is certainly part of the equation. It's a very important part of the equation. We could not have built givingmap.org without leaflet.js, without open source software, but licensure is only one part of the legal equation for making nonprofit work not only fun and safe, but equitable. And by that, I mean also staff, in particular executive directors, part-time staff, positions that are primarily usually but not always filled by women. So if that sounds like a rant, I'm sorry. It's not a rant. It's just like reality. Anyway, Element, matrix.org, serious cool. Matrix.org, by the way, little or nothing to do with the movie. I also like the movie. Not everyone may like the movie. Christians may not be comfortable, for instance, with like people in like tight, black, shiny outfits. Oh well. Oh well. We are who we are. We make our own choices. Don't assume too much about what any one person believes unless you have a chance to talk to them him, her, whatever pronouns people choose. Like, just take time to talk to that person about what they believe. Don't assume anything. And assuming makes an ass out of you and me. And by the way, that was a joke that I heard at church. The church in my hometown, which Cheshire, Connecticut, also had a lot of state prisons. The church, which was not a prison, it was an Episcopal church, St. Peter's Episcopal Church. That, by the way, was a shout out. I'll try to keep these to a minimum and not go on too many tangents. Okay. So Agile Scrum, I would argue you could even use this methodology without any software whatsoever. But what do I know? I'm not certified. Decentralized project management without Agile Scrum, that, on the other hand, we have to emphasize techniques, not toolset. This presentation doesn't contain step-by-step tutorials. I'm sorry about that. In part, this is because I have severe RSI, and generating these materials makes my injury worse. It is physically painful for me. It is physically painful for me even with like 1 or 2 ibuprofen. You don't want to take more than that, not for several hours. But you can alternate ibuprofen with Tylenol. That's medical advice. That's as much medical advice as I'm going to give today. Don't take too much in the way of ibuprofen or Advil. But know that repetitive strain injury, RSI, these are the same things. It's a pain point. Literally, physically, it is what it is. In an ideal world, I would have like this great presentation, and it would all be all about this, beautiful farm commune and like all of the steps that people were taking and using to like create the marketing team and the production team and the IT team and like delegating and okay, who has what roles and, getting down to like who's going to plant the corn, who's going to plant the beans, things of that nature. I would love to just be able to drag and drop, show people a presentation, a demo of that sort. Somebody else could do that. AI also probably could do things of that nature. But essentially, you just need to have a moderator and a regular meeting at a preset time. That's my definition of how Agile and Scrum, as methodologies, sometimes coordinated, occasionally set in opposition, that is my definition of how Agile Scrum applies to decentralized project management. You need a regular meeting at a preset time, and you need a moderator. Having a moderator, so important. Why is having a moderator important? Having a moderator is important because it frees up everyone else. You don't want probably your project manager, you don't want the person who's the team lead to be the moderator. If they are, and by the way, I was both. I was the director of Giving Map. I had to step back. Like I couldn't, you definitely didn't want your planning or your important strategic decisions to happen during those preset meetings. And again, you could have them every day, every morning, every afternoon. You could have them once a week, alternately once a month. Probably they should happen at least at regular intervals. The important thing is that people know about them and that people can show up and that people can make the choice of whether to show up or not. This is not mandatory community service. This is not make work either. There are real expectations connected with being part of these projects. And that was very much the case with our phenomenal team at Giving Map. And I'm so sorry, by the way, that I cannot thank by name everyone who was involved in that project or made it possible, because it would just be too long a list. I would leave somebody out. I have a terrible memory. Better than Ronald Reagan's, but he's dead. We can let him off the hook for a few things. Hopefully he went to heaven. Hopefully heaven is real. Okay, enough of a tangent. But back to reality. It's just very, very essential not to overload one person with all the responsibility on a project. Having a Scrum Master who aka moderator, who's separate from the administrative lead or leads. And oftentimes you have co-directors on projects, you may have partners who may not know each other well. Nonprofit culture, quite different from corporate culture. Artists are always an unknown. We are free radicals. Well, most of us are free, but enough about that. Artists, independent thinkers, independent self-taught coders, just any one person, you cannot generalize about how they're going to react in a group setting. So that's why having a moderator, it helps a lot. And yeah, there can be smaller breakout meetings to just figure out what actually needs to get done, to delegate tasks. But essentially the day-to-day of your community project that's using a decentralized project management base of information that's using this methodology, it should look something like this. Like you gather virtually or physically on a conference and you go around and you call on people in a different order. It can be random, it can be preset. You do want to do your absolute best to try to call on everyone there during the meeting. If you get 100 people at your meeting and you have 15 minutes, hooray, you win a trophy. I'm not responsible for providing those trophies, but maybe I could design a badge or two. Oh, shit, hand. Sorry about my language. I really didn't mean to cuss, but I do that sometimes. But anyway, just very important to let people know. It's just great to make everyone feel included. It's even better for everyone to be included. That's when stuff gets done. Conflict is a reality. There are differences between how all genders handle and manage conflict. I have been part of projects back in Massachusetts, and they don't call Massachusetts people, by the way, massholes for nothing. I've been part of projects, 2 of them several years ago, years apart, and several years ago, where people almost literally came to blows. And, I wasn't one of those people. Like sometimes personality conflicts do happen, especially between guys. But, again, I think it's dangerous to generalize too much based on gender. I will also say that having a moderator is a tough job. Remembering just everyone's name, the order in which you call on people, remembering how to pronounce people's names, correct honorifics, not getting people mixed up with each other, even if they look similar, even if they're identical twins, remembering not to say things like you people or y'all, which might be offensive to somebody in that room. These are not easy tasks. There's training available for that. I'm aware of this. But, hats off to amateurs, hats off to anybody who wants, with a sincere and beneficial interest, to be involved in their community. Other things to be aware of: regular meeting at preset times. If you're doing projects that span multiple continents, it can be difficult for all people to gather at the same time. Just be aware of that when you're reaching out to people in the EU, certainly in Asia, probably also in South or Central America or Africa. And Australia, Australia is great. I think they gave us some of the concepts that later were codified into this thing called Agile Scrum. I heard that once at a conference I attended in Massachusetts. So some other language that you, if you're an impatient person, may be wondering why I'm not getting to: sprints, backlog, burn down list. Why is she not talking about the burn down list? How can we not have gotten to that? They're already checking their lists. This is a complete failure as an explanation of what either Agile or Scrum is. All that I can say is these are very real elements of this extremely effective methodology, but also be careful what terminology you use in community projects. Since outside the world of software, not everyone may understand your terminology. And some people may be confused or frightened if you use too much, or they may think sprinting actually means running, especially if they've ever gone out for cross country or been in a race. You never know. These are about projects where, we're taking it to the streets. Like, you can actually, in theory, involve people who are not from your same neighborhood, who didn't maybe go to college. This could happen. I have an idea, by the way, of a Portland-based nonprofit. I have reached out to them in person. I did this yesterday. That would be great as, shall we say, a guinea pig, a test subject for a methodology like vaguely resembling this. It's in the St. John's neighborhood. They run a food pantry. Enough said. Anyone wants to take that on, it'll never, I won't never say never. Anyone wants to take that on, they can talk to me, or they can find their own food pantry wherever they are, whatever state of the union, whatever galaxy we're in. There will always be a need to help hungry people find food. Claude and I, this, by the way, is a nod to Anthropic.com. Their product, the Claude AI, talked about food insecurity. Claude did not disagree with me that it was the number one problem, the number one threat to humanity's continued existence. So I should stop for a moment and just ask how many people in this room are familiar with Agile Scrum. Great. Fantastic. Thank you for being patient. Some benefits when you take the Agile Scrum methodology and you apply it to free and open source software projects, to community software projects, whether in collaboration with an established nonprofit or not. These can also, by the way, be startup projects. We hope some of them will succeed. Some benefits: inclusivity. It's a really, really appealing and effective methodology to accommodate people with disabilities. People for whom it may be challenging to attend a bunch of different meetings, show up. You can scale back or you can scale up. And if you show up at that preset time, you're still part of the project. And that can mean a lot to some of us. Other benefits, and I can tell you this personally from Giving Map, just a great way to accommodate a mix of paid staff and volunteers. And for that matter, outreach to the academic community, from the academic community, projects which include students, which include interns, externs, summer associates, people of different ages. It's just a great way to just include people without there having to be a lot of hierarchy. And it's funny because the person who taught me Scrum at Daimler, he described it as being basically revolutionary, not incendiary, but something that was just extremely powerful and, against hierarchy in many ways. I'm going to stop here and just say that I do think age restrictions and having some kind of differentiation between people who are legally of the age of majority, that's 18 in the United States or under, does make sense really for any project where there's a remote safety concern, or for any project where financial compensation is involved. So, I don't know, that's one of the things that a legal framework would be great to address and consider. But you could use this methodology for picking stocks. You could do a lot of things, and you could have community forums for picking stocks. And there are some on Reddit. There are some I hear on Discord. Long ago, there was this place called Twitter. Then it became X. Never mind about that. But another really essential part of running a project well in the community is building morale, getting people to be excited to be there, not just phoning it in, but just having experiences that are both positive and memorable. Giving Map, well, let me tell you about January 6th. We got to watch those events unfold live during one of our scheduled meetings. Like, we were just all there to talk about the project, how it was going, early 2021. Then I checked the news and I'm like, okay, we're just going to cut, straight to the news. And we all stayed on the call, college students, grown-ups, and just like watched it happen. OMG. So for me, that felt like history in the making. I've reached out to many of the people involved in that project, and I'm relieved that I've heard back also from some of them. I think participation, it's just healthy. It's real. I think also that Agile Scrum as a starting point may help reduce the frequency of turf wars, and that's not a gang reference, by the way. Don't accuse moi of having gang ties. But politics on every level, and sometimes they're not overt, sometimes they're covert, politics really are a thorn in the side of any organization that maybe scales past 15 or 20 people. That's where I maxed out. That's as many people as I've ever managed. Politics, they can be an issue in villages. They're certainly an issue in cities, territories, regions, nation states. And politics, you want to create ways for people to laterally be able to connect with each other after the meeting is done. That's the main purpose of Agile Scrum, is giving everybody enough information that we can all stay on the same page. And if you're working on actually implementing a new color button, and you want to make sure you're using the exact right hex code and not just one that looks sort of like that hex code, but you also want to make sure that everything is ADA compliant and that you're not pissing off anyone who is colorblind, who might be your boss or your team member, or might be somebody that you are trying to hire in a few years, or who is trying to hire you. You want to be able to communicate without having to go through 2 or 3 different managers and get approval to actually contact that person. It's a starting point, but of course people are very careful about sharing contact information, how to create this type of project and have a central person who can get people in touch via contact. GitHub, I think, any platform in the world has its flaws and has its strengths. The most important, I think, quality of a successful methodology for decentralized project management, whatever it is, whatever you're doing, you need to check regularly. Our biggest mistake with Giving Map was having email addresses set up that were not regularly checked. We had the CEO of Tableau reach out to us after our campaign went viral. That was in December of 2020, I'm sorry. We also had a news station in the Bay Area reach out to us from the same campaign. And by the way, just a video that went viral on Twitter and on Facebook, a COVID awareness video. That's all it was. And we had help from an influencer who we did not pay. That's cool when it happens. Such a huge opportunity to have taken this project further. But you know what? I didn't see those emails because they went straight into a forgotten, neglected folder in a WordPress directory structure until about 2 months later, and by then the moment had passed. So just real-world advice for anybody involved in nonprofits or projects of any sort that they want to be successful. Test out your contact channels. Make sure they work. It's difficult. It takes a lot of time to do it right. It can be overkill. And if you're having trouble getting through to people on your project and you consider them essential to the project, talk either to the Scrum Master or talk to whoever's in charge, whoever you know best. Bump it up. Make sure that people that you're depending on don't suddenly disappear. And again, none of this is a cure-all. But I've seen nonprofits with conflict. I've seen private companies with conflict. I've also seen conflicts get resolved, and I've seen beautiful things come out of collaboration. That's the world I believe in. And so this can be an alternative to the benevolent dictator model. It can also be just sort of a sub-tier of the benevolent dictator model. You can test out this methodology. If you do so, you don't need to talk to me directly, but I'd be interested in how it works out. You can get more done than with hackathons. Hackathons almost always are projects of limited duration, maybe a day long, maybe a week, if you're very lucky, a month. Nonprofits really need to feel secure about work that they're putting time and resources in. They need to feel not abandoned. So Agile Scrum as a methodology, when working in connection with software at any budgetary scale, it could be really, really good for nonprofits. And yeah, there are ways to monetize this for larger entrants into the field. That's not what I think is most important. I'm never going to be all about monetization or money. Capitalism, it's a reality that we live with. What else? A lot of tech workers, even now, are maybe for the first time in their life having a hard time finding a job. This is a very new and uncomfortable feeling for many of us. Many of us who've sort of had the perks of being in demand, of feeling like we were just unassailable, like we always had work, like HR people, recruiters were just, couldn't get enough of us. We're always waiting to hire us. Your next full-time salaried benefit position, it could be a while away, even if you are a programmer, definitely if you're in middle management. All I will say is don't take that out on your husband or your wife or your spouse, or try not to. But programmers, especially like if they're facing economic stresses, more than anything, if you're a mother, God knows a single mother, but programmers, if you are a parent or if you are dealing with house payments, rent payments, anything, it's actually helpful sometimes to have a forum to blow off steam, to be part of projects that are collaborative and just for fun. I was lucky enough to be part of one such project. It was based in Spain. You can find that on my GitHub. It's called The Narrows. And there's also this thing called Rose Code. And that's like, I would love it if more people got into that. But again, I have a tendency to self-promote. This talk can be edited, and I know we're running short on time. What else do I need to say? Please encourage people to take on roles such as documentation, testing, and bug fixes that are otherwise not glamorous. Also, the benevolent dictator model, usually marketing is anathema. Agile Scrum can and really probably should encompass communications and reaching out to more people than a tiny subset. Information wants to be found. That's something I believe in. That's something that I've built my current company on, that belief. So without further ado, we're going to dive into this case study giving map just for a moment. This was something that we built on short notice. The project began in May of 2020, pandemic in full swing, thanks to a generous grant from a family foundation, and thanks to our fiscal sponsor. And it was an interactive map where the primary purpose was COVID awareness. It's no longer live, by the way, but at that time we had real-time updates of just where the pandemic was most severe, in which states and which counties. We also had a way for people to give to local charities in those places. It wasn't perfect. Charity Navigator was a great partner for us, but within the time frame, we went with AGAP. AGAP stands for as good as possible. We did as much as we could, and we know that the project actually landed donations. If we'd been able to continue longer, we would have better and more detailed information on who and what got donations, but privacy is also important. One of the shortcomings of Giving Map was that at that time, we didn't feel like it could accommodate faith-based projects as well. Or at least, that as program director, at that time I made that call. Other things to know about Giving Map, just incredible team and diverse team. That wasn't done on purpose, that just sort of happened. This lady, Candace Parker, we got to the point where not only did we have the Giving Map, we had the Hunger Map. Different data set, not the Johns Hopkins data. She found recent data from Feeding America, and she was able to build, with our full support, a real-time hunger map, which also pointed to the areas of the country where food security was worst. And food security is still around. 1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. That was the case in late 2020. I doubt it's much better now. So anyway, we're running short on time. I want to make sure that we close at the appropriate time. And I'm going to get us back to our PowerPoint. As should be aware by now, this is not my only project. Best way to contact me, tessgadwa.com. This thing, I would love to have people participate and contribute. This is potentially just a hub for people with concerns and interest in making AI better. It's not a political space, and it's not a philosophical displace. It's not a philosophical place. But if you have a background in QA or testing, and you're interested in particular in seeing what Mistral or other open source AI models can do, this might be right for you. It's open, and this is, by the way, live and accessible on GitHub. How are we doing on time?
Well, let's thank our speaker. We are really short. We could probably do one question, and then we gotta let people take a break.
Okay. Anyone? Okay.
Sure, why not? It sounds like you have some experience with bringing on people unfamiliar with the software development lifecycle and thus Agile. Do you have any experience on how to bring such contributors on board?
Okay, I'm gonna restate your question just because I have the mic right now, and I can't give it to you. You're asking me how to bring on contributors who don't have experience with software development, how to bring them on board. And I would say patiently, gently, with encouragement. And again, it does take time, but be aware if there are people who cannot afford to go back to school and are trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives, or people of any age, this could be a lifeline. So I think it is important work. I think a great starting point is just kind of explaining the fundamentals of what the software lifecycle looks like, CI/CD, what those initials stand for, why it's a mostly closed loop, and just breaking down the different roles, making sure that people don't think it's always about coding and programming. Programming is super fun. It's also like, if you're all OCD, like it's almost symptomatic. Like you never want to stop once you start. But there's more to software development by a long shot. So making sure that people are familiar and understand how important documentation is, how important testing is, how important bug fixes can be, and of course graphic design. I know something about that, and just also soliciting user feedback. That's how I would break up, and of course also management roles, team leads. Ideally, those are filled by people who have some software experience, whether they're coders or not. But sometimes, honestly, it's good to have people who are new to the field have a voice. And it's essential if you're working with a nonprofit in a space other than software to give them room to get involved. So does that answer your question?
Mostly.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Thank you.
One more round of applause. Nice.
Thank you.